and welcome to the Everyday Father. I'm Charles Schultz, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Tyler Graham, father of six, helping men reclaim their time and win the hearts of their children. Tyler, thank you so much for taking time to join me today.
Yeah, Charles, thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to be here and to chat about fatherhood for a little bit.
Absolutely. So, what I want to start with here is it's right in your tagline. How do we reclaim time, and how does a father of six have any time at all?
Yeah, it's a great question and one that I get a bunch, and honestly, one that I think most dads are trying to answer. When I have conversations with dads about the biggest obstacles and challenges in their fatherhood, that is usually at the top of the list. Is there's just not enough time to do everything, to do it all. And I put that in my tagline, and I like to focus on that with dads because I think there is an element of that that's true. We are limited people. We have limited time to offer. As dads, our time is even more limited because we're giving ourselves to our families, to our kids. And it just increases the importance of us being very intentional about the things that we're saying yes to, about the things that we're giving our time to, and ensuring that we are committed to dedicating our time to the things that are most important, the things that are serving our vision for fatherhood, our values as a family. And I think it's a very challenging thing to do. And I'm sure we'll dig into that over the course of our conversation today, talking about how I think dads can reclaim their time, how they can refocus their time, their energy, their attention on the things that matter most without losing themselves in the process.
Yeah, no, I think that's an important piece because, time is one that's limited. And two, anybody who is ambitious at all wants to use their time to get things done. Let's start with, how do you decide what's important to you?
Yeah. So I think this comes down to your vision. And when I say vision, I mean as you close your eyes and you think about who you want to be in 5, 10, 50 years from now. What is that picture? Who are you becoming? Who do you want to become? And so for me, I've spent a lot of time in my life, especially since becoming a dad, of kind of continuing to revisit that picture, of coming back to who I want to become and almost reverse engineering that, right? Taking a look at my future self, thinking about who I want to be for my kids and saying, what are the things that I need to do today to make that future become a reality? And start taking steps from there to figure out what are the things that I can do now that are going to compound over time to result in me being the type of dad that I aspire to be. That's come out in the form of a kind of a vision statement that we have for our family. It's written on our wall in our kitchen, what we call our pillars or our values. We've got 10, and those things really shape kind of who we are as a family and who I am as a dad. So whenever I'm faced with a decision, an opportunity to say yes or no to something, it's not uncommon for me to really kind of take it through the lens of our vision as a family, through the values that we have as a family, for me as a dad, and determine, does this thing align with those? Is it going to help me accomplish those things? Is it going to help me become the type of dad that I want to become? If the answer is no, it becomes an easy no, right? It becomes an easy thing to say, this is not the right time, not the right season, not the right thing for me. If it's a yes, then you can dig a little deeper. You can decide, hey, is there enough margin in my life for this thing right now? If I say yes to this, will I need to say no to other things? How can I ensure that I'm not just continually adding to my plate without taking things off if I'm going to have to continually give my time to something? So it becomes this kind of steady exercise of constantly evaluating, assessing my level of margin, my level of capacity in my life right now. What other commitments do I have? What are the most important commitments do I have? Do I have time for those things? And can I do that in a way that's going to allow me to be healthy during this season of life, right? Am I committing myself to the appropriate number of things without overcommitting myself, burning myself out, becoming, kind of a shell of myself, a shell of a dad, because I've simply tried to do too much. It's constantly kind of making those assessments to determine what's good and right.
I like that. Would you mind sharing a few of those values with the listeners in the audience today?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, we have 10. And some of those that come to mind. So, one is value the table. So, that's one very practical where we want to value the table together as a family, meaning we want to prioritize time around the table together. This could be at meals. So, we make an effort to try to eat most of our dinners together around the table as a family. Could be something as simple as board games. It's a big one for us in our family. Easy way for us to connect with younger kids. As you mentioned, I've got six. My oldest is 10. They go all the way down to two. So they're all young right now. And board games is just a really fun and easy way to connect. And we usually do that at the table together. It could be that we want to invite people over and have people eating dinner with us around our table in a way to know our neighbors, know our family, know other people that are kind of in our circle. So that's one, and some practical examples of how we've gone about doing that. Another one, one of my favorites, is 3 Mile an Hour family. So if you follow my content at all, or if we'll probably dig into it more here in our discussion today, but I am a huge advocate for living an unhurried life. I think I've already mentioned it once or twice in my kind of intro comments, but it's this idea that I cannot be the type of dad that I want to be while I'm in a hurry or while I'm rushed. And so one of our main values as a family is to live at 3 miles an hour. It's kind of the average pace of somebody walking. So we want that to be characteristic of our life. We know there's going to be seasons where we need to sprint, or seasons where we need to kind of grind and get some things done. But for the most part, we want to live our life in such a way that we can be unrushed and unhurried together. So that plays into what I say yes and what I say no to, because I know if I overcommit myself, I can't fulfill that value. I cannot live at 3 miles an hour if I'm overcommitted and overburdened. And so, again, I could go on. There's very tangible ways that each of those values plays out in like the practical day to day of our life, and how we kind of structure our family, how I structure my fatherhood, how I show up for my kids.
Yeah, no, I want to dive a little bit more into that first one because I was actually asked this question the other day: is do families eat around the dinner table anymore, or eat at the dinner table? And my answer was, I guess a lot of it depends on the season of life and the value you place on doing that.
Hmm.
Right now, some of your older kids are probably starting to get into activities. So, how do you
Hmm.
balance the increasing number of activities while still getting time around the dinner table and doing things as a family, as a unit in that environment?
Hmm. Yeah, so we have, again, because that is one of our values. Again, what we call pillars is to value the table. We've tried to intentionally structure our life in a way that allows us to be at the table together as much as possible. And so for many seasons, that has meant saying no to certain extracurricular activities. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. That's how I grew up, with two younger brothers, you know, parents kind of dividing and conquering, taking us to practices, games, different things like that. And I loved it growing up. Um, we've realized that there's certain aspects of having a large family and having six kids that us trying to maintain the hustle of getting kids to different activities every night is not going to allow us to be the type of family that we want to be in this season. As our kids get older, that may enter the picture. We've gone through seasons where our kids did we had our kids do martial arts, and it was because all three of our older kids could be in the same class. It was twice a week at the same time, and didn't require us to divide and conquer as much. It still allowed us to be at the table. And so, again, I think those are just the types of decisions that you will face as a dad, that I want to be driven by a strong conviction, a strong vision, strong values. Again, I don't think there's anything wrong with your kids being engaged in activities and sports and different things of that nature. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. What I do get concerned about is when dads just say yes to those things just because they think that that's the right thing to do, because they think that's what everybody else is doing, so I must say yes to this as well, rather than kind of critically evaluating it and say, does this align with who we want our family to be, what we want our family to look like, what we want our rhythms to look like as a family, and making a an informed, intentional decision about that.
No, that makes sense, and I like that approach because I personally want my kids to play sports. I played
Mhm.
sports. I played in college.
Yeah.
It's something that I value, and so because of that, I know there's going to be some sacrifices and
Mhm.
compromises to
Yep.
what we're doing, when we're doing it, how we're doing it. But I also am looking at it from that lens, and I think that that's a valuable piece of it. Is, do you
Mhm.
understand why you're saying yes to these things? Why you're doing these
Exactly.
things? What's important now,
Mhm.
and going that direction. I want to dive a little bit deeper into some bigger terms here in a moment, but we're going to step
Yeah.
away here and hear a little word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back after this commercial break.
Hello, we are the MD and Chef team. I'm nutritional chef Michael, joined by my beautiful wife, Dr. Isabel, medical doctor and suicide survivor.
Yes, I was dropped into the world of mental illness back in 2013, and by the grace of God, I survived suicide. But here's what I learned. We don't have a mental illness issue. That's the downstream event. We're focusing downstream. We should be focusing upstream on our brain health and all the things that we can be doing to support our brain health. Because you see, it's like mopping up the floor when the sink is overflowing instead of turning off the faucet. So come and join us on the MD and Chef Team show.
Come join us.
All right, welcome back to the Everyday Father. I'm here with Tyler, and I have a big question for you, and it's one that I think a lot of men wrestle with: is
Mhm.
what does the word father mean to you?
Mm. Yeah, man, we could spend a long time talking about this answer and really digging into this. And again, I think if you were to ask 50 dads their definition, you may get 50 different answers. And I think that in and of itself is very telling of what a father is. I actually made a post on LinkedIn the other day about this, that a dad isn't just a dad, right? A dad is a teacher, a shepherd, an encourager, a champion, an advocate. I probably had 25 things listed and could have gone 100 more of all of the different roles that a dad plays. And so I think if I were to boil that down into like a concise statement, I would say that a dad is someone who is leading his children intentionally, that he is present with his kids, and that he is consistent with his kids. Kind of intentionality, presence, consistency. Those are the three that end up coming back to. I end up coming back to no matter how I kind of approach this question. And I think the reason being is that everybody's fatherhood journey is going to look different. We just said that in kind of the last segment, right? Like my approach for my family right now in the season is less sports. Whereas you said, that's an important thing for you and your family, your kids. Neither one of us are right. Neither one of us are wrong. We have different things
Yeah.
that we're prioritizing in this season. And I think that's true of any dad that you talk with. Their vision may look different, their values may look different, but at the end of the day, it's going to require both you and me to be intentional. It's going to require both you and me to be present with our kids. It's going to require both you and me to be consistent in the way that we're living out our life to become the type of dad that we want to be. Even if that end all picture looks a little bit different, that's a good thing. But the way we go about doing that is going to require kind of those three elements in my mind. So I think a father is somebody who is those three things, and is continuing to find ways to show up for his kids no matter what.
I like that. I like that approach, and I think that those three words mean a lot to me too, because I try to show consistency in the way I act, the way I do my work, the way I go
Hmm.
about trying to stay in shape. I try to be present as much as I can to play and to do those things. And
Yeah.
when I look at that and I think about this and I talk in your experience, I'm wondering, how often do you find that dads struggle with those three terms?
Mhm.
Does fatherhood need a boost?
Yeah. 100% it does. I think dads across the board are struggling to keep up with the demands of fatherhood and of life. And I think at the same time, we don't have to go down this whole rabbit trail, but, culturally, I think the role of dads is being diminished. And so there's this, I think, glaring lack of support and encouragement for dads to be the type of dads they want to be. And with social media and with this kind of picturesque vision that dads are being given, where they should be able to do anything and everything, right? Goes back to how we kind of opened the conversation, where dads are kind of fed this lie that they should be able to do it all. They're not going to. They're going to fall short in certain areas. And so then shame starts to creep in because they're under this assumption, this impression that, well, every other dad has this figured out. Every other dad is doing this. I'm the only one who can't. What's wrong with me? Why am I failing? Why can't I live up? And they're carrying the weight of that in addition to the weight of fatherhood, which is heavy enough itself. And so I think there is this, again, it's why I try to put my voice out there, to put my message out there, really simply to be an encouragement to dads, to let dads know, like, the role of a father is immeasurably valuable, right? If you look at the statistics of fatherlessness, they are sobering when you see the impact that a dad has on a child's life. It's difficult, it's challenging, it's exhausting, but it is the most life-giving thing in the world to me, being a dad. I wouldn't trade it for the world. And I want dads to be able to see that it can be done, that it can be done well. That doesn't mean perfectly, but that you can show up for your kids in the small, mundane moments of life, the moments that are otherwise missed, and still have like a tremendous impact on your kids, and still be the type of dad you want to be, even when you're messing up, because we're all going to mess up every single day as dads. There's tremendous grace for that. Thankfully, kids are very forgiving. We just need to be better at forgiving ourselves sometimes, I think.
No, I totally agree that they're significantly better at forgiving than we are.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I kind of want to go down this rabbit hole a little bit.
Yeah.
Because
Let's do it.
as part of being an NGBN, and part of the reason why I started this show is, as a father of 3, obviously not quite as busy as a father of 6, but time is time and difficulties are difficulties. And I think that we are all battling different types of challenges, which leads to why NGBN exists and why we are on this platform, is because men in their 30s through 60s are the most likely to succumb to suicide.
Mhm.
And I think a part of that is because of the cultural piece that you mentioned, where men and fathers are being diminished. So how do we go about helping to change that narrative?
Man, what a good question. And I certainly don't think I've got the full answer here. Again, I think this is going to require a lot of people kind of pitching in. I think you're doing your part, hosting this podcast, getting your message out there. Again, just being a voice of encouragement to dads. I think, again, from my perspective, what I'll call like my piece of the mission there is really encouraging dads to slow down, to create that margin in their life. And again, I'll keep coming back to it because it's just my personal soapbox for dads. And because, like you said, I think there's this cultural pressure to perform, to do, to provide, to do all of the things. And what happens is dads so often get stuck in this trap of trying to do it all, trying to be all things for all people. Because of the diminishment of fathers, they don't really have an outlet to process any of this, right? There's this epidemic of loneliness, I think, especially within men, where they don't have an avenue, they don't have an outlet to say, I'm drowning and my life is really hard, somebody please help. They, put on the brave face, keep going, all the while neglecting themselves and the things that make them come alive. And their life becomes just this series of obligation and duties and commitments that don't give them any life. They're working a job they hate, and they're kind of wallowing in this place, and they've got nobody to say that to, because there's this assumption that everybody else has it figured out, so I just need to figure out how to do this on my own. And all the while realizing that despite how hard they're working and how hard they're performing and how much they're doing, it never feels like enough. And it's a really vicious cycle, right? Like I'm sure you've seen it in the men that you've worked with and the men that you've spoken with, that you get stuck in this cycle of trying to perform, trying to accomplish. It's never enough. So you dig deeper, you dig harder, and you just end up a shell of yourself, and you lose hope, right? You get to this point where you're just like, you know, if I can tell a quick sidebar story that I think highlights this,
Mm.
a good friend of mine several years ago, a guy that I'd walked with for a long time in life, a dad of 4 young kids, he kind of hit a point and he left his family, moved out and left his wife and his kids. And I ended up meeting with him the next morning, the morning after he had moved out, and we were standing on a sidewalk, and I looked him in the eyes and said, how did you get here? Like, what happened? And I'll never forget his response to me. He said, I've been working so hard to make this all right, and look where it got me. And he said, I figured it was time to do something different, to go to change something. And it was just this picture of like hopelessness, this picture of what happens when we get caught on the treadmill of working really hard but not actually getting anywhere. And it left him at the point where he felt his only option was to leave his family. And thankfully he didn't get to a point of considering taking his own life, like you mentioned. And I know that's not the case for everybody. There are guys who end up at that point and don't have the opportunity for redemption that my friend had, who's now moved back in with his wife and his kids, and their family's been redeemed and restored. Not everybody gets that opportunity, but it highlights, I think, the point that men can hit when they feel like they've worked so hard and life is not working out and they don't know what to do.
Yeah, no, that's a powerful story, and I'm glad that things turned around for your
Yeah.
friend, and
Yeah.
he's back home where he needs to be. I want to dive into a couple more things as we close here, but we're going to take one more quick commercial break before we get back, and then we'll finish
All
up
right.
right after this.
Cool.
Hey, I'm Micah McCreary,
And I'm Rich Fry, and welcome to Truex Outdoors.
the ultimate outdoor show.
So come tag along with us as we experience thrilling adventures in hunting and fishing.
From the mountains to the rivers, we'll bring you the most action-packed outdoor experiences.
Watch us now on NGBN TV.
Truex Outdoors.
All right, welcome back to the Everyday Father. I'm here with Tyler, and I've got a couple more questions to close out with. Tyler, first is, talk to me about the teamwork aspect of raising 6 kids.
Yeah. So that is actually another one of the values. So if we go back to the pillars that we talked about earlier for our family, another one of our 10 is family as a team. So Jeremy Pryor is a guy who I really look up to as a dad. He runs an organization called Family Teams, and it really is this idea that a family is not a group of individuals, or a family is not a springboard just looking to send each member off individually to accomplish whatever they are setting out to accomplish, but that a family is a multi-generational team on mission, that they're united together to accomplish a vision, a goal, something together, and that working collaboratively, leveraging the gifts, the strengths, the skill sets of each member of that family together is going to allow you to better accomplish that mission than if you were going about it individually. And so we see that playing out already with our family. Again, I mentioned we've got young kids. My oldest just turned 10 last month. But I already see with 6 kids, we have such unique and valuable gifts and strengths across our different kids that I want to be able to invest in each of those and be able to help them see the way that they can use their gifts to benefit our family. So, for example, my oldest, my daughter, is extremely creative, and I want to help put her in a position to leverage her creativity to bless our family and to bless our community, the people around us, the different things that we feel called to as a family unit. My oldest son, my 8-year-old, he's very justice oriented. He feels very strongly about things that are right and wrong. So he wants to spend a lot of time kind of learning about different conflicts happening around the globe and figuring out, are there ways we can support people? Are there things that we can do to help in these areas? And so, again, I could go on, but for the sake of time, I'll kind of leave it at that to say we're starting to recognize the different gifts that each of our kids has, and we're finding ways to continually kind of increase the scope of our vision as a family to incorporate all of those unique gifts so that each of our kids clearly has a role to play in what we're doing together as a team.
I like that. I think the unit thing and the teamwork and using and leveraging each other's strength is a powerful way of looking at
Yeah.
it. And I started thinking through it in my mind as you were talking about it, of as my kids get older, to try to build that team mindset around each other, to support and
Hmm.
lean on each other and not be individuals on their own personal quest, but you have
Right.
your quest in conjunction with the team. And how can you help
Hmm.
your sister or your brother
Exactly.
do
Yep.
what they're trying to do while you do what you
Hmm.
do? So I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
What I want to do here is I want to close with giving you an opportunity to share where my audience can find you, where they can connect with you, if they're looking to work with somebody to build their fatherhood up and to get back on track. Where can they reach you?
Yeah. So I do most of my content pretty much exclusively. My content is on LinkedIn right now. So you can find me there at Tyler Graham. You can find that also on my website, burnuntamed.com. It's a pretty bare bones website, but it gives you the opportunity to message me or find my LinkedIn there. You can also email me directly at tyler@burnuntamed.com. And I'd be happy to talk. Always love getting to connect with dads and just have a simple conversation about, what challenges you're facing today. Start envisioning what that life could look like as being the type of dad you want to be. Also do offer some kind of one-on-one coaching and some cohorts as well that take you through what I call the Burn Untamed framework. So it kind of helps you focus on how to become intentional, present, and consistent, like we talked about earlier.
Love that. Love that. Tyler, man, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy
Yeah.
day to join me and share some of these words of wisdom. I greatly appreciate it, and I know my audience is going to love it. Before we let you go, real quick, what's the most challenging part right now in your daily routine of having 6 kids? What's the most
Yeah.
difficult thing?
Oh man. I think the bedtime still continues to be a struggle. So any dads out there struggling with bedtime, you are not alone. We've been tweaking and flexing and trying all kinds of different stuff for years, and we go through seasons where it's smooth and we feel like we got it figured out, and then time change comes and it just wrecks everything. And so we're always trying to figure out room arrangements, different strategies, different kind of training to help our kids stay in bed once they're in bed. But still, most nights we have a visitor or two that we're working on. So still don't have that part completely mastered yet. So if any listeners have it cracked, let me know.
Absolutely. Well, that's it for today, guys. Thank you for joining us on The Everyday Father. Until next week, we'll see you later.